Thank you so much for having us. Our coalition, Rebuild Local News Coalition, represents a very broad range of groups: publishers, labor unions, conservative, rural weekly newspapers, urban websites, for-profits, nonprofits. And there is actually, of all the ideas that we have seen around the country, the idea that unites all those different players in our coalition is the idea of the employment credit, the proposal that Senator Glazer is putting forward. And the reason that we care about this, of course, is this national collapse of local news. And it is really hard to get one's head around the scale of this collapse. Thousands of newspapers have shut. On average, 2.5 newspapers are closing every week in America. The studies have shown over and over again that when you're in a community that has less local news, you have more corruption, more pollution, less civic engagement, higher borrowing costs for city government, higher taxes, and higher polarization. So there's all sorts of negative effects that are shown over and over again in communities. California has lost 68% of its journalists in less than 2 decades. That's actually one of the worst states in the country in terms of the collapse of local news. We really like this idea of the employment credit as the way at this because, as Senator Glazer said, the incentives are smart. You know, if you slash your reporting, you get less. If you add reporters, you get more. It's future friendly. It helps both established players and startups, commercial and nonprofits, large and small. It properly constrains the role of government, which is a key issue. There's no panel of state officials. There's no panel of state officials picking winners and losers and deciding who to get grants. In several ways, the bill is actually better than the federal version and some of the other ones out there. First, because it gives a higher benefit to smaller and medium-sized newsrooms under 10. This is especially important for ethnic media and rural newspapers, which tend to be smaller and are incredibly important in their communities and have been disproportionately hurt by this wave of closures around the country. And it also allows for support of freelancers. That was a specific request on the part of that we were hearing on the part of ethnic media organizations because a lot of their publications don't have full-time employees. We're grateful that those concerns were heard. We tend to think that efforts to help local news in a global way actually pay for themselves because the amount of money that local reporters end up saving for governments and businesses through their reporting. So let me just close on the last point about, well, why are we asking tech companies to help pay for this? First, because they're the big winners in the digital revolution. Alphabet, which recall owns not just Google, but YouTube, Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, Amazon, together brought in about $1 trillion in revenue. That's more than Procter & Gamble, Eli Lilly, McDonald's, AT&T, Coca-Cola, Citicorp, Lockheed Martin, Morgan Stanley, Nike, and Netflix combined times 2. So the $240 billion in profit that the three bring in would go down to $239 billion in profit under this bill. So we think it's a very, modest proposal in that sense and would have a dramatic improvement in the coverage of communities in California.